At night, the highway glows like a river, but it runs through someone's living room. From far above, it looks efficient, yet on the ground it feels like a warning. One side of the block can see the other, but reaching it becomes exhausting. Children learn the traffic hum before they learn the names of neighbors nearby. These roads were sold as connection, yet they often became borders inside cities. How did one project split communities, businesses, and families across a few lanes? Who gained the gift of speed, and who paid the hidden costs for generations afterward? Tonight we follow decisions that turned familiar streets into ramps, trenches, and overpasses. We will hear the promises and then trace the quiet damage that followed those promises. By the end, you will know why certain neighborhoods were chosen for sacrifice first. After World War II, America leaned into cars, suburbs, and a confident idea of mobility. Downtown still held jobs, but homes and shopping were drifting outward at a fast pace. Traffic climbed each year, and leaders feared cities would choke without new high-speed routes. In Washington, the Interstate program offered money, standards, and a blueprint for modern life. State highway agencies grew powerful, staffed with engineers trained to move vehicles efficiently. Mayors wanted federal funds, construction jobs, and proof their city belonged in the future. Business groups wanted faster freight, and commuters wanted shorter weekday mornings and evenings. Planners also carried assumptions about race, class, and what counted as valuable urban land. Bank maps and real estate practices had already marked some blocks as risky to invest in. Those blocks were often dense, historic, and politically weak when public hearings were scheduled. Officials labeled them blighted, a word that made bulldozers sound like helpful medicine. In glossy drawings, the freeway looked clean, bright, and almost weightless above the streets. On the ground, survey stakes appeared first, then appraisers, then letters about acquisition. Owners might negotiate, but renters often received little warning and fewer protections at all. Churches, clubs, and corner stores watched customers vanish as relocation spread people apart. Some residents wrote petitions, yet meetings were held far away during working hours. Meanwhile, newspapers praised modernization, and critics were framed as obstacles to growth itself. Few leaders admitted the cheapest routes usually cut through the least powerful voters. Once the corridor was selected, deadlines and federal rules pushed projects forward relentlessly. By the time bulldozers arrived, the argument felt settled, even to those losing homes. Highway lines followed straight geometry because curves meant more land, more bridges, more cost. Eminent domain turned addresses into parcels, and parcels into numbers on a clipboard. Blocks that once connected like fabric were sliced into dead ends and one-way exits. Utility lines were moved, trees were removed, and dust settled on curtains and meals. Construction lasted for years, with detours, blocked sidewalks, and constant vibration near homes. When the pavement finally opened, drivers celebrated time saved, measured by dashboard clocks. Residents noticed something else: the sudden need to detour to reach a friend next door. A narrow overpass replaced a familiar corner, and strangers controlled the crossings daily. Noise became permanent weather, louder than radios, louder than summer crickets at dusk. Exhaust hung low on still days, and soot collected on porches and windowsills. In New Orleans, Claiborne Avenue lost its oaks and street life beneath an elevated interstate. In St. Paul, the Rondo neighborhood was cut by I-94, scattering black families and businesses. In Miami, I-95 and I-395 carved through Overtown, once called the Harlem of the South. In Detroit, I-375 cut beside Black Bottom as renewal erased clubs, shops, and homes. Each city had its own story, yet the pattern of power looked painfully familiar. Public hearings existed, but designs were presented as technical, not moral, questions to debate. Engineers optimized flow, while residents asked about schools, churches, safety, and daily errands. Some neighborhoods sought compromises, shifting lanes, adding caps, or demanding safer pedestrian crossings. Often the answer was that budgets were fixed, and the route was already chosen. Interchanges expanded, requiring more land than early drawings suggested, widening the original wound. New service roads appeared, separating houses from shops and turning walks into long exposed trips. Bus routes were rerouted, stretching commutes for people who could not afford reliable cars. Police and fire response patterns changed because old shortcuts were gone and barriers multiplied. Developers chased exits, building malls and office parks that pulled taxes from older streets. Home values near the roar declined, while quieter areas farther away gained wealth and leverage. Schools drew students from smaller areas, and boundaries hardened into new lines of separation. Public space shrank as parks were taken, and shade disappeared under concrete spans. Where the road was elevated, sunlight dimmed and a constant echo filled the blocks below. Where it was sunken, a trench formed a moat that walkers crossed only with effort. Some districts gained access to downtown, while others gained only noise, dust, and fear. Teenagers chose different schools and jobs because crossing the highway felt dangerous or humiliating. Over time, these patterns hardened, and the split became normal to newcomers too. Yet older residents remembered when the shortest path was simply walking across the street. Property owners near the lanes faced repairs, but lenders hesitated, calling the area unstable. That hesitation invited neglect, and neglect was later used as proof of decline. Meanwhile, wealthier areas often mobilized early, pushing routes outward, or demanding tunnels and parks. That contrast made the freeway a visible lesson in whose comfort government protected. So the highway did not just divide streets, it divided opportunity, quietly and relentlessly. By the late 1960s, protests spread, and freeway revolts stopped several planned projects. New environmental and planning rules expanded review, giving communities tools earlier residents never had. Courts began treating noise, fumes, and displacement as impacts, not mere inconveniences of progress. Still, highways already built remained, reinforced by maintenance budgets and political inertia alone. Car culture grew, and advertising sold open roads, rarely showing shadows under overpasses. City institutions adapted, zoning for parking and wide arterials, making walking less practical. As jobs decentralized, highways helped drain downtowns, accelerating the cycles leaders claimed to fix. Federal funding favored lanes over transit for years, shaping which futures seemed realistic. Even language shifted, with neighborhoods described as corridors and people described as traffic demand. Across generations, the split became a civic scar, teaching distrust in public decisions. The lesson is not that roads are evil, it is that choices carry human weight. Speed is a value, and when speed dominates, other values quietly fall behind. A city can measure travel time, yet it should also measure trust, health, and stability. These highways connected regions, but inside cities, they often disconnected people from each other. So when you cross an overpass, can you picture what it replaced and who disappeared? Today, some cities remove short spur highways, rebuilding boulevards where ramps once dominated views. Others cap trenches with parks, trying to stitch street grids back together above the noise. These projects can heal, but they can also raise prices and invite new displacement. Communities now demand safeguards, like affordable housing, local hiring, and land trusts for permanence. Engineers design quieter pavement and better barriers, yet the fundamental divide still matters. A safe crossing is more than concrete. It is permission to belong on both sides. Repair also means restoring services, so buses, clinics, and schools feel reachable again. Maintenance neglect becomes another harm because crumbling bridges hit poorer areas first and hardest. Climate planning now confronts highways, since traffic emissions settle heavy over nearby homes. Freight corridors grow busier, and logistics zones spread where families once lived close together. Elders still point from car windows, marking where kitchens and gardens once stood proudly. Old maps reveal grid lines ending abruptly, as if the city were cut with scissors. Photographs show storefronts, then vacant lots, then columns rising where children once played. Museums and libraries collect these stories because asphalt does not erase belonging completely. Transit planners propose trains and busways, seeking mobility that does not require displacement. Yet widening projects still appear, and communities fear that history could repeat itself again. Some neighborhoods seek community benefits agreements, trying to lock promises into enforceable commitments. Others push for air monitors, tree planting, and noise reduction that actually improve sleep. Schoolyards near interstates add filters and fences because children cannot choose their air. Economists trace lost wealth through decades, showing how displacement reduced stability and inheritance. Public health maps reveal darker outcomes along busy lanes, matching the sound heard outside. When planners listen early, routes can bend, costs can rise, and harms can shrink. When they do not, a neighborhood can be broken in a single season of demolition. Real repair is more than cosmetics. It reconnects opportunity, not just paving smoother lanes. The next generation will judge our maps, because those lines still decide who belongs where.